There we go. All right, guys, we are back after a long absence. Hope you enjoyed your All Star break because we are in for a big one today. I'm going to announce this right off the bat. The trade deadline is a week from today, and a lot of teams, some of them are selling, some of them are buying, and we will talk about that a little bit. I will lead off with this, though. Right off the bat, Seattle is making moves looking to keep themselves in
Yep.
the playoff race. They receive Josh Naylor from the Diamondbacks, who are only 5.5 back, so I don't know the move there, but they give up two prospects, their number 13 prospect and the number 16 prospect to the Diamondbacks. Naylor's hitting 292. Big bat, gets on base and everything. Heart of a very big competitor. Johnny, let's hear about what you got to say about that for your Seattle Mariners here.
Well, this could very well be the trade that kind of puts them over the top, so to speak. Although we have to look at the other side of the coin, Arizona's POV. It's kind of crazy that they are 2 years removed from a World Series appearance and now they're sellers. I don't know what their mindset is, but for the Mariners, this should work very well in their favor, I think.
Well, it gives them a big first baseman, which I don't think they've had in a while now, where they haven't had that big power bat. And I know for sure that's going to give them a little bit of a jolt here. Meanwhile, we have from the White Sox, that south side of Chicago, we got Mr. DeJesus. You want to talk about big bats? This guy met the never call him Howard, Big Jim Thome. And I think the White Sox are turning a corner here. They have 36 wins. They are not doing as bad as they were last year. Historically, they're about ready to pass their win total from last year. Do you think they sell at the deadline? I know it's a time where selling would be okay, but you want them to bring that prospect pool for themselves.
Well, before I get to that, we came out of the All-Star break. We won 5 of the 6 games on the road trip, including getting our first sweep of the season against the Pittsburgh Pirates at PNC Park, where we scored 27 runs in that series at PNC Park. And then we went down to Steinbrenner Field, the temporary home of the Tampa Bay Rays, where we beat the Rays, who, to me, are the most surprising team in baseball this year. I did not think they were going to do anything, and they're right there in the wild card hunt for the playoffs. And we took 2 out of 3 from them, including last night, in which Kyle Teel hit his first career major league home run. So I was very, very excited about that. But despite all that, all the good play we've had on this road trip, and we're coming back home for 3 against the Cubs. Crosstown Classic continues, and then we have 3 against the Philadelphia Phillies. We're gonna sell. We're absolutely gonna sell at the deadline. Adrian Hauser is gonna go. Aaron Savali might go. Luis Robert, I don't know what we're gonna get from him, but he's gonna be probably gone. A bunch of our other pitching is gonna be gone. But I hope that this can open the door for someone like a Hagen Smith or a Noah Schultz to potentially get an August call-up. I would love to see what we have in them. Colson Montgomery, of course, got called up at the beginning of the month. He's been playing some pretty good baseball, but we're definitely going to be sellers, and I hope that we can get at least some good stuff back from other teams that are looking to contend.
I just took a look at Luis Robert's numbers. Luis Robert, however you want to say it. He's one of the guys I'm very surprised is still there. Aaron Savali, he's bounced around Cleveland. He's been with the Padres. Now he's with Chicago. I think that'll be a decent haul if they're able to get rid of those 2. Adrian Hauser is a toss-up for me, coming from Milwaukee to pitch for the South Side and everything. There's a lot that Chicago has improved on, and I give them a lot of credit for that. They're about ready to win their 40th game of the season soon, and they're on a 5-game winning streak. Now we go to the North Side with the Northsiders, the second best record in all of baseball, trying to catch the Brewers and everything. What do you think they could do better?
Well, it's not really a problem. When the Cubs came out of the All-Star break, they were struggling a little bit. I mean, PCA is still doing PCA things, as I like to call it. But he's had a little injury, some bruises where he's taken a day off, and that actually costs them when he takes a day off. I mean, because there's a lot of MVP talk, circling around him. He played in the All-Star game and did really well. And as far as the trade deadline goes, the Cubs GM is not really giving much away in the media, but he says there's not one person that's not tradable, is what he's come out and said, which worries me a lot. But also our friend Kyle Tucker, he wants to talk because I think he wants to stay with the Cubs and see what they can do, and that would be one of the best things to hang on to.
All right, so for right field wise, the Cubs haven't had a solid right fielder in a while, so I think keeping Kyle Tucker, but the biggest problem is always going to be money, because that he wants
and
that contract.
That's been the Cubs' problem for a while, is
Especially
the money factor.
Because they're idle tonight, but Tucker has been having a great season, and that's his biggest thing is a 4-WAR player got let go by the Astros. 18 home runs, 275 average, 23 steals. You're having a guy that's going to possibly go 30-30, and he wants to get paid, and he's on a 1-year, $16.5 million contract. You got to sign that guy, or I don't know what the rule is, because I know I played enough out of the park baseball. Maybe you get a competitive balance pick in return, but again, Tucker's on the right side of 30 right now. He's not 30 yet. He's only 28. So I say lock him up long term. He's in his prime.
Well, and jumping back to Pete Crow Armstrong for a minute, they need to really talk to him because at this point that man can write his own ticket.
Yeah, and that's just it. You got that guy. PCA is going to be that guy who brings money. He will keep Wrigley moving. He will keep Wrigley full. He reminds me of Sandberg all the way.
100%.
Got to keep
Speaking of Sandberg, this past weekend in the series against the Red Sox, Kerry Wood threw out the first pitch, and he was wearing a Sandberg jersey.
It gets me right here, knowing that the Cubs did not win a World Series when Sandberg, Wood, Pryor, any of those guys were there. Sosa
and there's been a ton of support for Ryan Sandberg at any of the games the Cubs have been playing lately. You've got John Lester that's showing up. Who else showed up the other? Bobby Dernier showed up and sang the seventh inning stretch wearing a Sandberg jersey. So they are 100% behind him.
So my number one thing is, what is the best road stadium you would love to go watch baseball at? A road stadium. It could be any stadium. It doesn't even have to be a stadium that exists anymore. Past, present, any of those stadiums. Johnny?
Well, I go to Dodger Stadium each year, every July, but if I didn't have to pick that one, then I'd say Toronto's Rogers Center, because even though it was opened at a time when artificial was still prevalent, they've kind of spruced up the place over the past few years. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing them host the All-Star game there in 2027.
I would love that, actually, because I know next year, and I know Brandon's very excited because he loves Philly. He loves himself some Philly. They got the All-Star game next year, and they've had it at Veterans Stadium as well previously. I love that. I love that they're bringing the baseball culture to Philly next season. But Toronto, very good venue. Rogers Center, it's always been a great place. Even when I play there in video games, always open air, very nice place to be. Brandon, you're up next.
I'm going to go with the past stadium that is not around anymore, and I'm going to go with the Kingdome. I've always wanted to go to the Kingdome when it was around. Like, I would watch old school like games, like the double, of course, like with Edgar Martinez, and I would watch other highlights from that stadium, and it just looks so cool. Just all the AstroTurf, so many seats, and I could imagine it being real loud, kind of like how Lumen Field is with the Seahawks now. That would be such an incredible place, I think, to go to a road game, especially a playoff game. That would be insane.
I'll tell you something. I went to a few games at the Kingdom back in the day when it was still there, even though I can't remember what games they were. I was just a young kid back then, so it's all kind of a blur for me.
Nice.
See, that gets me goosebumps because being an A's fan like I was, I can't imagine the amount. That's what they call the 12th man now in Seattle when they opened up Lumen Field, which was known as Quest Field for the longest time. The 12th man, the 10th man, your home field advantage, home or on the road. When you go to an opposing team's stadium and you see that fan support, you're thinking, uh-oh, we may be in trouble. Because when fans travel, you should be worried. That's what fandom is. And I know this is going to be a good one too, because this is coming from a guy. The fans, whether they win, they lose, whether they're good, they're bad, they always show up. So, Josh, I'm willing to hear this.
I actually have two, and they're not Wrigley Field.
Oh, okay.
I would say old Yankee Stadium, the original one, and Candlestick Park in San Francisco.
Oh man, I only ever got to go to Candlestick once, and I was a baby at the time. But based off what I heard, it was the place to be, whether it was baseball, football. But people said you actually feel like you went to a ball game there. It was like with Veterans Stadium, which hosted baseball and football. It's the multi-purpose stadiums that always seem to be better. I know they're doing it now with Wrigley Field. Want to know what I say they shouldn't do? Play football at Wrigley Field. I know the Cubs did it. I know the Bears did it a long time ago before they had Soldier Field to themselves, but don't ever put goalpost in front of the basket at Wrigley ever again.
That is
I would agree. I would agree. 100% agree.
I'm sorry, but there's certain places that should never be used as a football stadium ever again. The Coliseum was fine because the Coliseum, it took them 12 hours. Just flip the field.
Yeah.
That's all. And that's why I don't mind it now, because the one that I love the most is not LA's Wrigley Field. That thing was not fit for baseball. I'm sorry. It was so short. At LA's Wrigley Field, it was awful. You had to run a country mile for anything hit to the right center, right field. But my one that I like was the LA Memorial Coliseum when they were using it for both.
That's a beautiful building.
That is what you call home field advantage. They held the Olympics there. The Dodgers played there. In 2008, they played there. The largest baseball crowd ever at 104,000 people. Bless you. Bless you. But it was you get goosebumps because over 100,000 fans there to see a baseball game. It makes you feel like when they play the games in Venezuela, in the Dominican Republic, in all those places. It's the goosebump effect. Okay, so this one is where you play hardball, because this is the one that David gave me, and this is one that's going to kind of hit home for you guys, because I know David this is kind of like a punch in the dick. I put it bluntly. But what is the biggest shock you've seen your team do at the trade deadline? This time, I'm going to start with the White Sox fan because it feels like the Cubs have done theirs and the Mariners have done theirs. But I want to hear from Brandon first.
I'm going to go with the Ken Griffey Jr. trade in 2008. I just never in my life thought that I would see my two favorite baseball players of all time, Jim Thome and Ken Griffey Jr., on the same team, and it happened in 2008. And I, as an 11-year-old kid at that time, thought, okay, we're winning the World Series. Little did I know that Ken Griffey Jr. was approaching 40 at that point and had almost no power left. But even then, it was so cool to see both of those guys on the same team. We did make the playoffs. We got swept by Tampa Bay, unfortunately. But that was definitely a very shocking trade, and my jaw definitely dropped when I first heard about it.
Just incredible. They had 3 guys hit 30 or more that season, and then they had 2 guys hit 600 or more too. So that's one of the only teams to ever have that. But I didn't expect Griffey to get traded from Cincinnati either back then. I was only 13 when that trade happened, but probably because I don't normally give myself a chance for these, but the biggest trade that I remember, at least, I had just gotten out of high school. I'd only been out of high school a month and a half. The Cespedes trade back in 2014. The John Lester Cespedes trade. I hated Billy Beane for it every single day since. They went and go get John Lester. And then in another trade, they go and get Samardzija and Hamill from the Cubs.
Yep.
And I'm trying to figure out where the hell they're going, because they were so far in first place. It was like the bottom fell out of everybody, because Yoenis Cespedes was only 3 years in at that point, and he only played another 6 after that. But tore my heart out, because Cespedes was one of the best players they had at that point. They falter against the Royals and then
Lester started that wild card game, didn't he?
Yes, and the lasting image for A's fans at that point was Josh Donaldson, who never played another inning for the A's, was him missing that ball down the left field line to end that game. He never played a no win again. That base hit from Salvador Perez, that was my lasting image of Donaldson. He could not play third base to save his life. But enough about my heartbreak from a team that no longer exists. Johnny, biggest shock your team has dealt, Mariners or Dodgers, all at the trade deadline?
Well, for the Mariners, the biggest one was the fact that they traded a very disgruntled Randy Johnson to Houston in the summer of 1998. That was, at the time, pretty painful. But the 3 guys the Mariners got from the Astros would turn out to play very integral roles in the 2000 and 2001 playoff runs that they had. So I guess it worked out in the end. Now, as for the Dodgers, Manny Ramirez from Boston, holy. He did okay in that first half season in Los Angeles, then kind of petered out in the subsequent years. So,
okay, I completely forgot about Manny from Boston. That was a 3-way trade, by the way. That was a 3-way trade that involved Brandon Moss, Jason Bay, and Manny. And the 3 players that were involved in that Astros trade, Carlos Guillen, who would go on to play a role for Seattle and for Detroit later, John Halama, and Big Freddie Garcia, who would go on from Seattle to go play for the White Sox in 2005 and win a ring. You want to talk about a domino effect now. That's something for both sides, because Manny Ramirez would also go to play for the White Sox at the end, including wearing that weird St. Patrick's Day green White Sox jersey.
Hitting a home run in it.
And hitting a home run in it. That is my one thing that I think of in the back of my mind. I'm like, when the hell did Ramirez go there? It's same faces, different places type thing. But now that you've stunned me a little bit, I'm going to see what Josh has, because I know the Cubs have done their harm and done their good at the trade deadline in the past.
Well, and I don't remember too much from the past today, unfortunately, but the most recent one I remember is when we blew up the World Series team in 2019, where you took away Javier Baez and Anthony Rizzo for the prospective trades to the Yankees and the Tigers at the same time. I mean, you think about that. They were just from a fan perspective, they were the draw because they were on that dream team. And when those two got released to the prospective teams, there was upheaval on the north side of Chicago.
So you were close with that Baez trade was the PCA trade. That was with the Mets.
Yes, but there were a lot of people upset about that trade though when that actually did happen because PCA hadn't come up yet and he was still down in farm system.
Well, if I had to balance it out, the Mets screwed themselves. They lose Baez, and then he's now an all-star in Detroit after everything he went through to be an all-star center fielder. Not a shortstop, not a second baseman or a DH, a center fielder.
Yes.
And now in New York, they've got the aging 36-year-old Starling Marte playing center field. That has to hurt for sure. And I'm glad Kurt isn't here. He would, because I can talk about this. Normally I lay off on that stuff. But the last question I have, because we got plenty of time left. Loudest stadium. Because I know Brandon brought up a good point. And so did Johnny. Loudest stadium in the majors. Other than Philly?
It's kind of hard to.
Other than your own team. I'm going to say... Yeah, go ahead, Johnny. Go ahead.
Well, other than the Mariners and my Dodgers, the Yankees, not surprisingly, are pretty enthusiastic.
Well, I wouldn't say they aren't. The only thing is it's the Bronx Zoo, and that's what they've been named for years. The Bronx Zoo has always been very loud. But
indeed,
besides how it was when I never got to go to the reverse boycott. Those tickets sold out so quickly back in 2023. The final game that the A's ever played, that was the loudest I ever heard it. 50,000 plus, just yelling. You don't get that feeling too often where you just hear this almost riotous bunch of people getting upset over something, happy over something. If you ever go to a sellout crowd, just close your eyes for a moment. Let the feeling overwhelm you a bit, because you don't get that wave of energy very often unless somebody tases you. I don't mean that literally, but it just feels like you don't get that type of electricity anywhere. But in all honesty, the loudest place I've ever heard was probably 2015. Was one of the last times the Pirates were in the wild card game against Cincy. The Cueto game, when they were saying Cueto,
and he dropped the ball.
That is what you call a home field advantage. That is what I would call it. Brandon, loudest stadium.
I'm going to go. I had two in mind, and if I had to pick one of the two that I was thinking of, I'm going to say Progressive Field in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Look at the last several years that Cleveland has been in the playoffs. Like, I go back to 2017 when Lindor hit that grand slam against the Yankees.
Yes, that was one of the loudest.
And then you go this past playoffs when Jhonkensy Noel hit that big home run off Luke Weaver. The whole place exploded, and it was just insane to hear, and it was a beautiful sight to see. Everyone just jumping up and down and going crazy.
I'm almost tearing up because you rarely see that. Jesse, there he is. We're gonna let you get your chance in a moment here.
All right.
Because I went with Johnny, I went with Brandon, Josh. I'm gonna give you a chance next, and then we're gonna talk to Jesse because I want him to get his chance. And I'll ask him all three questions, David. Don't worry.
I'll stand with Brandon on this one because I have to agree with that. It's one of the loudest stadiums I've ever heard. I mean, the only other comparison that I could make, but it's my own stadium, was the Bartman incident
Oh God. I
And I know we don't like to talk about the Bartman incident, but you had fans that wanted to find him and do bad things.
all I remember was I was too young to watch it. I didn't start necessarily actually watching baseball until the ALCS of the. I watched the A's on television in 2004. That was when I first started actually watching baseball. But hearing just the ability to just feel it. You don't even have to feel the electricity in a ballpark. But when you know something went wrong against a home team, you want to take cover almost immediately. Almost immediately. And it happens all the time.
And the
Just
funny thing
go
about
ahead.
that,
Go ahead, Josh.
I didn't get tickets for that game, so I stood outside the ballpark. We knew something went wrong because you could hear it all through the neighborhood.
And that's the scary part is if you are at or in the vicinity of a place where something has gone wrong, you know something has gone wrong. Okay. I'm going to ask you guys to keep a little bit of patience with me. I'm going to ask Jesse the questions like I did you guys earlier because he's here and I want to make sure I get his time. So, Jesse, we're going to go with you for these 3 questions. Your favorite, what is the best road stadium you love to watch your baseball team play at? Best road stadium.
Whew, man, that's a tough question. I used to love to watch the Astros play against the Braves because I was a fan of the Braves during the Ted Turner era. And man, every time the Astros would go in there, I would always root against the Astros. I'd turn my back on them because I was into the pitchers, John Smoltz, Greg Maddux, those guys were larger than life and legendary. And just the atmosphere is just so great during that time.
See,
Us-
I love that. I love that. The ability Turner Field. I love all of that. That's awesome, dude. I love all of that because I I think about Atlanta this way. Atlanta was one of the hardest places to play, whether it was Turner Field or County Stadium. Those places were both loud, and they had one of the greatest rotations of a decade. Not a single year, a decade. Especially when you had Denny Nagel and Steve Avery, or Kevin Millwood for that brief period. Atlanta deserves so much better in that time. Second question for you: and these guys have already blown my mind a little bit especially with the Manny trade that involved Jason Bay and all that, the Griffey trade and everything else. They've gotten me just mystified with their knowledge so far. So now it's on you. The biggest shock, and one of them was already mentioned with the Astros, the Johnson trade, the Randy Johnson trade. So if you want to give your take on that's fine. But the biggest shock the Astros have done, Astros or Rangers, at the trade deadline in the past.
I think the Randy Johnson trade was big. I mean, you had I think Larry Durker was the manager at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And whew, I just couldn't believe like we had that presence, And then later on, when we were starting to like in the mid 2000s when we were going for that world title, we added Roger Clemens to the roster, Andy Pettit. I mean, we were going all in that year. It just, I mean, for us to fall short, and Bagwell, you know, lost his shoulder that year.
That 2005 team, honestly, I was a really big fan of baseball. I still am now, but not as much because my team is no longer around. But in 2005, once the A's didn't make the playoffs, I wanted Houston to win the World Series. And Brandon don't hold it against me, but it's not that I hated the White Sox. It's just that the Astros, their road through that playoffs where they beat Atlanta, the Berkman Grand Slam to put them within a run in the NLDS. Then the home run by Ausmus that just barely went over the yellow line. And I mean within inches of not going over that yellow line. And then my family, who was probably mad at me because I made them watch this, in the middle of freaking October, it was a hot October night, 18 innings. Chris Burke, the utility infielder, hits that home run in the 18th inning off rookie Joey Devine to send him to the pennant. And then they face the Cardinals, their long nemesis and everything.
Yes.
They win that one in 7 games as well. And then they just get swept by the White Sox. And Jesse, this has actually been gnawing at me a little bit because Mark Burley was such a great pitcher. You remind me of him with the facial hair and everything. It's just the distinct facial hair. You remind me of Mark Burley in a way. I thought it was kind of funny, but it's out there. But the final question is, and we just were tapping on it while you came in. The loudest stadium besides your own team and Philly in Major League Baseball. The loudest stadium in Major League Baseball.
I remember during the Texas Rangers run, man, that was when they were playing. I think the first World Series they went to, it was San Francisco, and then when they would go to their stadium, man, the roar of the crowd was loud, even though Texas, choked in those.
I wouldn't say they choked, but I agree that because I've been to San Francisco, it was a day game, not a night game, but it seems like no matter what stadium you go to, day game, the energy's not as much there. Night games, 100% changes everything. Like if you went to Arlington Stadium, that was a heat trap. I would say the biggest heat trap there is because it was always hotter during the evenings. They had the All-Star game there in 95, but I think Arlington was a loud stadium. Wrigley's always better during the summer because there's more fans. They're all boosted up and everything. They're drunk. Dodger Stadium is a lot better in the evening because the dusk falls down and everything. And to me, Dodger Stadium at night is a playoff atmosphere 100% of the time. Because it's that feeling of once the lights come on and the sun goes down, you're in playoff baseball every single time. And when you're in Chicago for the White Sox games, they haven't had the playoffs very often, but it seems like every game they play in is always must win. And Houston now, too. I know they're not winning today, but when they're winning baseball teams, I feel like fans are a lot happier when teams are winning. And when they're losing, they're not there as often, but they're still faithful to the need to win. And that's why I like baseball so much. Because it's not the loudest, because I've been to games where there's 20,000 fans and it feels like there's a sellout crowd. If you're still faithful to your team, win or lose, that is the spirit of baseball. That is my take. We've heard what these guys have had to say, and even though not everyone was here the whole time, that's okay. I'm more than happy to see the people here, happy to hear what they have to say, and I value their input just as much as everyone else. This is the weekly baseball rundown, folks. This is the best of the best. I got 5 guys here that love baseball and know about baseball. If Kurt was here, I would have heard his take too, and I would have been happy. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And thank you guys very much for another weekly baseball rundown. Mr. Ortiz, you're welcome always. Thank you. You matter, brother. All you matter to me. And I'll see you guys next Thursday. Let's watch some baseball. Let's enjoy ourselves. Y'all have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.
Take care, guys.